I tēnei rā, e rua tekau tau ki muri, ka mate tētahi o ngā kai whakangahau tae ki ngā para rongonui o Aotearoa. I te wā e ora ana ia, i te wā hoki i mate a ia, ko Billy T. James, te muro a te tini, te wenarau hoki a te mano.
He was born William James Te Wehi Taitoko, but he's forever remembered as Billy T. James, that funny Māori fella with the hard case laugh.
You just slap it in the reverse and it'll spit the bloody thing straight back out of it.
He could sing too, touring the world during the 70s with one of New Zealand's famous show bands, the Māori Volcanics.
We can love the world away.
In 1980, he stepped in front of the television cameras and the legend of Billy T. James, the comedian, began.
Part Maori, part Scottish, makes it difficult. One half of me wants to get drunk, the other half doesn't want to pay for it.
One of his students became suspicious when he told her that the Māori word for food was takeaway. And that the kotanga was Māori for car aerial. Hard case, eh?
His jokes and characters poked fun at everyone, but he was accused of controversially stirring up New Zealand's race debate between Māori and Pākehā. Most laughed, some didn't, and a few threatened to kill him.
And then all of a sudden, getting these heavy things, it's a bit off-putting.
He won numerous awards and an MBE for services to entertainment, proving to critics his gags were seriously funny, and generally New Zealanders loved him for it.
He said, I saw these two fellas pinching the gate, but I never said anything in case they took offence.
Before he turned 40, he had a heart transplant. Within 2 years, he was dead.
Everybody loved him. That was the extraordinary thing about Billy. Everybody loved him. All those who worked on the crew, all those who worked for him, and anybody who was in contact with him. He was just one of those people.
The race relations controversies Billy stirred up while he was alive played out when he died. Billy's Tainui relation snatched his body from his Pākehā wife, Lynn. It split the nation.
Because he belonged to Tainui and he identified himself as being of Tainui, their wishes come first.
The Maori people have had it far too much their own way, where people don't stand up to them and say, hey, I've got rights, I'm a Pākehā and I've got rights and I want to grieve my way.
Thousands of Māori and Pākehā from throughout New Zealand came to Tūranga Waiwai to mourn one of this country's greatest entertainers.
William Taitoko was buried with his ancestors on Taupiri Mountain, but the comedic legacy of Billy T. James lives on.
Oh, well, as you fellas can see, it's raining and makariri up north and windy and wetter down south. So if you fellas live in the middle, may as well stay home because no bloody good anywhere else.
The life of Billy T. James will be celebrated in 2 movies being released this month. To discuss his legacy, we have his longtime collaborator, comedian and friend, Peter Rowley, and this hot up-and-coming Māori comedian, Matiaha Paku. Kia ora, thank you.
Peter. Kia ora, Jodie.
Kate Pai, let's start with you. Exactly how well did you know Billy T. James?
Right. How well did I know Billy T. James? Well, I knew him so well that we got caught shooting balloons together on Muriwai Beach by the police and had to be interviewed by Simon Dello's uncle. That's how well I knew him.
Who was the policeman?
Yes, he was the real policeman in Henderson. We got interviewed and we had a comedy session at the police station. It was bizarre.
Did you get arrested or were you just let go?
No, I wanted to be arrested because I've always, I like a bit of cuff. And no, they wouldn't arrest us. In fact, we had this wonderful cup of coffee with Chief Inspector Dello in his office, and we talked about hearts and we talked about comedy. And he said, "Oh, by the way, when you're out Muriwai, pick up your gun, Peter, and be careful where you're shooting. And can't wait to see the next episode."
Was he as funny off camera as he was on camera?
He was off camera. He was a very private, very shy person when in mixed company, but when we were alone, because I used to write with him, you see, and I stayed at his house when we were writing a series, and when we used to write together, it was so funny. It was so funny. We got bloody thrashed by the director all the time. Stop having a good time and do some work, you know, to get the scripts out. But yeah, generally he was a very private, shy sort of a guy when he was in mixed company.
Matiaha, how much influence has Billy T. James had on you and your comedic career?
Well, Billy T is really what comedians aspire to be in New Zealand. He was the most successful, and even today he's big gumboots to try and fill. Nobody's really ever stepped into his place, and he's just left such a legacy behind. It's hard to go anywhere and not think of when you hear "air here lair" or "where did I get my bag?" You don't think lands of bags, you think I pinched it. It's all the colloquialisms. I watched a bit of his old shows, and he used to say things like "chur" and the orange roughie. Anytime you talk about a red-haired person, that seems to be another thing that's been passed on. And anytime you're doing comedy at the Classic, there's a photo of Billy T in the green room. So always try and give him a nod before we go on stage, because he's really
inspiring
in what's and he's helped make the comedy scene in New Zealand what it is.
Peter, when you and Billy T. James were writing, did you make a conscious effort to say things that were politically incorrect or even Maori, insulting Maori?
No, not at all. No, not at all. I mean, it was more the other way around. The only thing that I think that Maori took exception to back then was when he talked like that, you know, on Te News and stuff like that.
Yeah, what is that? Is that like an accent? Is that the Maori accent?
Well, I think it was the archetypal accent to Billy. You know, if you go way out into the rural area and they talk like that, "Oh, grab that, bro," and all this sort of thing. So Billy sort of kept on talking like that, and you know, Kia Te News last night, some thieves stole a loose from the Kaikoui police station. The cops are concerned because they've got nothing to go on. So he did all that sort of stuff, and he did it beautifully. But you've got to remember that we also we put the borax right up the honkies. I mean, me as Captain Cook and saying, you know, "How say you, savage, you know, we're to buy this land, and for that we're going to give you 6 barrels of gunpowder, some axe heads, some beads for your women, tobacco for your men, and some glue for your children." Well, what we're saying there is that Pakeha brought some pretty nasty stuff with them.
Could you do that sort of humour today?
It would just be a later show. I think it'd go on at about 11 o'clock at night or something like that.
Pay-per-view only.
Yes.
You're trialling new things. You are actually making fun of traditional Māori tikanga, hariru.
Hariru.
How funny is that?
Oh, it's pretty interesting, because a lot of things that have been in Māori, a lot of people don't know the story behind it, such as hariru, that it evolved from "how do you do," and then it became hariru, sort of hariru, how do you do, how do you do, how do you do. That was where it come from, or the things that people don't sort of look over. I try and bring those up, because I suppose when Billy T was doing a lot of comedy, the go-to stuff was self-depreciation. Look at me, I'm a dumb, cheap, naughty Māori, but people liked it. It made him the likeable rogue, which is a big thing in comedy. You have to be likeable.
Peter, why do you think Māori are good at humour, or some Māori are funny?
I think Māori humour is very funny, because usually it's off the cuff, really fast reactions to things. You know, "Oh, stink," you know, I mean, I always laughed at that. When Billy looked at something, or, you know, it was stuff that wasn't even written. It was just, Māori humour has got that lovely, you know, when they banter together, it's so fast, you know. It's better than, you know, most humour I've ever come across, coupled with that, you know, a little salvo of words and then, you know, and those lovely laughs. You know, they're fantastic, and I think they should be used more and celebrated more.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah. Now, tell us, how do you think we should actually remember and honour Billy T. James?
I think what we've got to do is realise that he can never be replaced. He's our Elvis. There's no such thing as replacing him. Everybody from now on stands up in their own right and creates their own lot. And I personally am celebrating my time with Billy, and I'm doing a show on Sunday, today, I should say, on Waiheke Island, and because he loved Waiheke, and I'm doing this thing called Billy T and Me, which is a tribute to working with the most iconic entertainer this country has ever seen.
Kia ora. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. Look forward to hearing more about it. Thank you. Kia ora, Peter and Matiaha. Kia ora, Scotty.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Yes, gone, but the laughs still carry on.